At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
And the wolf is at your door. You're running over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton, and we are continuing the saga, if you will, Scorched, the state versus Scott Peterson. And death penalty phase, y'all, and they are throwing every stupid thing in the world up there. And I guess, trying to find one bleeding heart liberal to spare this dude's life, but everything they're throwing is scorched. It just doesn't make any sense. If you've been listening and y'all have, and the numbers continue to grow, the main reason I'm going so detailed into this, but you've been listening, I think you understand why it's scorched. But I'm going to continue today the defense and the death penalty phase, December 2nd of 2004. All right, y'all. So I'm going to do the direct examination by the famous defense attorney, still famous to this day, Mark Garagos, and he's going to be examining the witness, Janie Peterson. And so I'm going to say Garagos, and I'll say Janie. All right. So Garagos. Good morning, Janie. Janie. Good morning. Garagos. You married into the Peterson family. Is that correct? Janie. I did. Garagos. And you're married to which Peterson? Janie. The cute one, Joe? Garagos. When was that? Janie. 1987. Garagos. And I assume you met Joe or knew Joe or some kind of courtship period before you got married? Janie. Yes. Judge. Can you keep your voice up? Because I can hardly hear you, and I'm not sure the jury can hear you. Here it goes. Approximately how long did that last? Janie. I think I knew Joe about maybe 13, 14 months prior to getting married. Here it goes. Okay. Where'd you grow up? Janie. I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa. Here it goes. In Iowa. And where'd you meet Joe? Janie. Came out here to San Diego after I graduated high school, and I met Joe in college in a volleyball class. Here it goes. Okay, what college was that? Janie. Mesa College. Actually, the same college that Jackie and Lee met at. Here it goes. When you first met Joe in this volleyball class, at some point after that, you guys started dating? Janie. Yeah? Here it goes. Okay, and at some point, I take it, you met either Lee or Jackie or the family? Janie. Yeah? Here it goes. When was that, or how long after you first met Joe? Janie. I met Lee first, and I think it was probably a month or so after Joe and I started dating. I met him, and Joe took me to the races where we met with his dad. I know there were other siblings there. Here it goes. Do you remember if Scott was there the first time you met Lee? Janie. I remember just being kind of nervous about meeting his dad, but he made me feel right at home right away. He just looked at me and smiled, and he said, "What's a nice girl like you doing with a guy like this?" Because ever since that day, he's made me feel very welcome. Here it goes. I assume at some point you were introduced to the rest of the family and started to integrate with the rest of the family. Janie. Yeah, I think I actually didn't meet Jackie. I spent Christmas Eve with his family that year, and not being from San Diego, I didn't know the area real well. We were going to Rancho Santa Fe, or to meet his parents, or to meet Jackie and spend the holidays with his family. And on the way there, I remember driving through the community and looking around, and I was like, oh no, I was looking at the houses, and I was like, we need to turn around. I need to go change. I'm not dressed appropriately. But when we got to the house, and, it was a ranch style house, and when we went in and I met with Jackie and Lee, they were just such a normal, welcoming, loving family, and there was no pretentious arrogance at all. They lived in you said, a small ranch style house. Janie. Yeah. Here it goes. How big? Janie. I guess maybe 2,000 square feet. A 2-bedroom home. Here it goes. And Scott lived in 1 bedroom? Janie. Here it goes. I assume when you came to the scene, it's 1987 or 1988? Janie. Yeah. Here it goes. Scott's the only child still in the house. Janie. Yeah. Here it goes. And you meet at some point Scott. Is that correct? Janie. Yeah. Here it goes. And were you welcomed into the family as well? I mean, you talked about Lee and Jackie. Did the rest of the siblings welcome you? Janie. Very much so. That first Christmas we spent together, I remember they had a gift for me. Jackie had bought me a little pink ballerina doll, and I just thought that was so special because I hadn't even met her yet. And that just really touched me. Here it goes. were you the first daughter-in-law in the group? Janie, yes. Gary goes, okay, and did you also, you have children as well? Is that correct? Janie, yes. Gary goes, first grandchildren? Janie, yes. Gary goes, what are your earliest memories of Scott and the family? Janie, I think when I remember meeting him, I just remember how much he reminded me of, and maybe it was just my frame of reference at the time, because most of my memories were from, the Midwest. But when I met him, and I think that's what's part of me drew me to Joe too, is kind of that, he just reminded me a lot of the kids I grew up with in the Midwest. And Gary goes, I've got it marked as 9D, D9J1. Do you recognize this picture? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, and all the rest of these you gave me, correct? Janie, yes. Gary goes, do you know what D9J1, what event that was? Janie, I think that might be Thanksgiving of 1987. Gary goes, okay. Judge, 1987. Janie, yes. Judge, and who are you holding there? Janie, that's my oldest daughter, Brittany. Gary goes, who's now 17? Janie, 17. Gary goes, D9J2 looks like somebody in a not so flattering pose playing something. Janie, I think that was maybe on a Sunday afternoon. We gathered for dinner or lunch, and we were playing badminton out in the front yard. Not very well, but that's what we were doing. Me and Scott. And I think we're playing either Ed or Joe or Lee and Joe. Gary goes, okay, D9J3, is that also you and Scott? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, and the family dog. Was the family get together often over the holidays? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, okay, you have told me when I talked to you, you had a nickname for Scott, or the family had a nickname for Scott. Is that correct? Janie, a lot. Gary goes, and what were those? Janie, I remember they called him Scooter or Spalding or the Kid. That was always kind of. Gary goes, did he do anything special for you, or did he stand out to you at all? Janie, I remember the first. Judge, Miss Peterson, there's some Kleenex there. Do you want to take a recess? Janie, no, I'm okay. Judge, do you remember the question? He did some things for you? Go ahead. Janie, the first, I think it was Christmas that Joe and I were married. He gave me a pair of fuzzy bear slippers. Gary goes, how old was he at that point? Janie, I think he was 15. I still have them. Gary goes, did you have him? And he was an usher in your wedding, correct? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, okay, and you watched, I guess, basically him grow up from adolescence through, obviously, him today. That's kind of where you came into his life, right? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, when you first met him, did he have any kind of a business or a job that he did? Janie, I think the first business venture I remember him undertaking was golf club repair. I remember him having the tools and the equipment out in the garage to like adjust shaft links or change the grips or, I remember him talking about that and seeing all that equipment he had to do that. Gary goes, was he industrious? Janie, always. Just over the years, you could see how, whether it was, I don't know, something going on at San Diego Creighton or the things he did in his own home or helping us with home improvements at our house. The things he did to open up a restaurant. Genetics can be beautiful. Maybe you got your mom's eyes or her great skin, but genetics can also be a nightmare. I hear friends say, I got my mom's belly and love handles. Don't let genetics be the thing that holds you back from getting the body you deserve. Check out the Permanent Solutions by Sano Bello. Our friends at Sano Bello are offering you their best deal. You're now included in their winter savings event, but appointments are limited, so please make your appointment today. Sano Bello doctors are masters in micro laser fat removal. What is micro fat laser removal? Micro laser fat removal is a brilliant technique that removes stubborn fat permanently. Tummy, love handles, thighs, arms, wherever your problem areas are, the fat is gone in one comfortable visit. Eating healthy and workouts are great. Keep doing that. But if you want to lose that stubborn fat in one visit, check out Sano Bello. Save big during their winter savings event. Schedule your free consultation now at sonobello.com/RLRC. That's SONOBELLO.com/RLRC. Here it goes. Let me take a couple of those now. You said the home improvements at your house. What kind of home improvements at your house? Janie. Well, he installed a new front door lock for us. He also helped us refinish our kitchen cabinets. He installed a gas line for us for our stove when we were remodeling. Gary goes, you said he also, you told me a story about when he opened the restaurant, the shack, having a situation where he couldn't get a clearance at some point or get one of the inspectors to sign off. And what was that about? Janie, I think you had to have some kind of vent installed over the kitchen or something for exhaust, and you had to have some kind of certification to install it. And the only people in that area that did that type of work, I think were booked for, a few months out, and they were ready to open the restaurant. That's the only thing they were waiting for. See, he actually just went down to Los Angeles or maybe Ventura County or something, took a class or something, and he got certified to install the vent himself. And when he went back and installed it, so he could get the restaurant open. Here, guys. I have mentioned before, I have D9J4. This has been another one of those Thanksgivings. Janie, yeah. Yes. Okay. That's Scott and Susan and Susan's husband. Janie, Ed. Gary goes, Ed there? Janie, yes. Gary goes, okay, and Lee's in front? Janie, uh-huh. Gary goes, D9J5. Do you know what this is a picture of? Janie, that's her daughter's second birthday. Gary goes, okay. Janie, no, it must be, I'm sorry. That's not right. Yeah, it is. Gary goes, it's what? Janie, that's her second birthday. Gary goes, and D9J7? Janie, that's a photo of, that's my daughter Brittany on the right and my son Jacob, and you can see my son Zachary's legs and my niece Danica and Scott. That was the 25th anniversary party that we threw for Jackie and Lee up in the San Luis Obispo area. And that's Scott with the kids at the party. Gary goes, okay, and D9J6, what is this? Janie, that's a photo that was taken at John and Allison's wedding. Gary goes, and John is Scott's brother. Allison is his wife. Janie, yes. Gary goes, that's D9J8. That's a picture of John and Allison right there. Janie, yes. Gary goes, okay, DJ9. Who are those? Janie, that's my son Jacob and my nieces Rachel and Danica at Scott and Lacey's wedding. Gary goes, D9J10. Janie, those are my sons at their wedding. Gary goes, D9J11. Janie, that's Zachary with Scott. Gary goes, is that your son? Janie, yes. Gary goes, at their wedding, D9J12. Is that you? Janie, uh-huh. Gary goes, is that Lacey and Scott? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, we've heard a lot about some of these industrious things, I guess, that Scott did for these other witnesses. Are you also aware of him when he went to Arizona, working there as well while he was at school? Some type of delivery business? Janie, well, yeah, I remember him talking about having I think it was an art delivery business. Or Gary goes, is that a theme at the time that you knew him, that he generally, if he was able to, generally he worked? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, and as this a kid, at least that you observed, who would not just do anything or be unproductive? Janie, no. Gary goes, would he fill all his time generally with something? Janie, yeah, I don't know if I never really heard anybody else talk about it, but I also remember him talking about starting a t-shirt screening business. I don't know if that ever materialized, but there was always, resourcefulness. And Gary goes, okay, you knew him to also, we've heard virtually every witness has mentioned golf. And obviously, when you met your husband, I assume he's a golfer as well? Janie, yes. Gary goes, all the boys in the family golf? Janie, yeah. I don't know that John picked it up, but the other boys did. Gary goes, and is that something that they do together to bond together with? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, do you know Scott to kind of finance that habit of playing golf, to always do something golf related, either working at a golf course or the golf repair business? Janie, yes. Gary goes, okay, that's the entire time, at least that he was growing up, that you knew him? Janie, yes. Gary goes, would you tell me you also told me about an outing. Well, I'll take that back. He also had a name for you. Is that correct? And how would he refer to you? Janie, he always called me his sister. Gary goes, okay, Does that mean anything to you? Janie, yeah. Gary goes, why? Janie, well, I think it just shows how this family is. I was never a sister-in-law. He calls me his sister, and he introduced me as his sister. He's not trying to keep people out. He's not trying to exclude. He's inclusive. And I think that was also shown at their wedding when Don came. Don is one of the children that Jackie had given up for adoption. And most of us met Don and his wife at Scott and Lacey's wedding. And by the end of the weekend, Don's wife came up to me and she was just in tears, thanking us and thanking her family for pulling Don and her in as we did. She said she couldn't explain what it meant to Don to find his mom and find his siblings and to be so very welcomed by them. Gary guys, is that and I don't want to overstate it. So is that something that you just tend to characterize this family as? Janie, yes. Gary goes, where does that spring from? Janie, I think it just comes from, I think Susan used the word blended maybe yesterday. I think you could very well choose to be from broken homes when there's a divorce. But this is a family that blended and blended well and has continued to do so. Gary goes, do you have any, I think yesterday when I talked to you, also you talked about how Scott had picked up playing chess. Is that right? Judge, I didn't hear you, Mr. Garagos. Garagos, playing chess. Garagos, you told me about that as well? Jane, yeah, I just remember one of I think probably only Joe and I hadn't been married very long. And one afternoon we were at the house and I don't know how it came up, but Scott and I decided to play a game of chess, and I'm probably a little bit more competitive and was looking forward to the challenge, given the fact that I was spending most of my time with the toddlers. But I remember beating him, and I was, kind of, he doesn't remember that, but Gary goes, since he's been incarcerated, you sent him a chess strategy book? Janie, I did. Gary goes, and give him something to work on. Janie, I'm not going to play him anymore. He'll definitely beat me. Gary goes, you had met Lacey early on in their courtship. Is that right? Janie, yeah. And I think Joe and I were the first ones to meet her. Gary goes, where was that? Janie, they came down to San Diego for a weekend. Gary goes, do you remember what year that was? Janie, it probably would have been 1995. Gary goes, okay, do you have a memory of that first meeting? Janie, yes. Gary goes, what was that? Janie, they drove down in the town and they actually came with the business. I was working there at the time. They pulled up and came in the door and just both of them grinning ear to ear. And Lacey, she took my breath away. She was just so bubbly and fun and energetic and beautiful. And I couldn't use enough words to describe her. In fact, when I call Susan to try to describe her, I think I just kept going on and on, just trying to find the right words. And I don't know that I ever got there. I'm going to just fast forward a little bit. just to the next one because I can't do the other one anymore. And we're going to go to the December the 2nd, 2004, and it's going to be our good friend, Mr. Pat Harris. Y'all know you love the voice I do for him. And he's interviewing John Edward Peterson, the witness for the defendant. So, Harris, good afternoon, John. Peterson, good afternoon. Harris, as you know, we've been going through different members of the family, different friends. So we had a lot of background, has already been introduced to the jury to get a sense of timing and where everyone is. And I want to do that just very briefly with you, sort of talk about some of the timing things. And then when I think I would just like to have you share some of your stories. We'll talk about different things, your relationship with Scott, you, as far as you and this family and your mother. Jackie is your mother, right? Peterson, yes. Harris, now, Lee married Jackie. How old were you at that time? Peterson, I was 5. Harris, were you happy about that marriage? Peterson, definitely. I remember telling my mom, I'm happy we're married. Harris, at that point, you went to live with Lee, right? Peterson, right. Harris, and you left, you lived with Lee and Jackie then until you left the house at 17 or 18? Peterson, yes. Harris, how old were you when Scott was actually born? Peterson, I was 6 years old when Scott was born. Harris, now based on the marriage between Lee and Jackie, you also developed some whole family? Peterson, yes. Harris, so there was Susan, Mark, and Joe as well? Peterson, yes. Harris, and did you have opportunities to see them? Peterson, yeah, definitely. We spent a lot of time together. Harris, they would come over on weekends? Peterson, come over on weekends. Harris, any other times? Peterson, sure. All summer long, they'd be over a lot of the time. Took a lot of family vacations and trips together. Harris, when Scott comes along at that point, get some water. Scott comes along, you say you're about 6.5 years? Peterson, 6 years old. Harris, what are your first memories? Peterson, first memory is Scott in the hospital. He was sick. We weren't allowed to visit him, so my dad took us in the back of the hospital, and we took turns being lifted up over the cinder block wall to peek in at Scott. My mom would wave, hold him up for us all to see. Harris, were you excited about having a baby brother? Peterson, definitely. Very happy. Couldn't wait to have a new playmate to teach everything I knew. Harris, what kind of things did you teach? Peterson, all kinds of things. Taught him how to ride a bike. Taught him how to build forts. Everything a big brother shouldn't teach his little brother, I taught him. Harris, were you close with him? Peterson, definitely. Harris, there has been a lot of different testimony about the fact that Scott was not the person who loses his temper very often and gets angry. You do have a memory of his losing temper, is that correct? Story about that? Peterson, actually only have really one memory of seeing him lose his temper. I think he might have been about 4 years old. My dad spanked him for something, and he cried, and he went to the room. And about 5 seconds later, the door opened, and he came running down the hall, and he had his fingers on his head like this, his head down, and he hit my dad right in the stomach. And we just all laughed. Heard about that for a long time.
And last time I ever seen him lose his temper in any way, if you would call it losing your temper, if you could call it that. Harris. We talked about things a big brother would do. One of those things was riding a bicycle, did you say? Peterson. Yeah. He got a brand new BMX Pro Thunder that he got for Christmas. Nice shiny little tassels and everything. He wouldn't ride it. Didn't have much interest in riding it. And one day my mom was at a garage sale and she brought home like a mini bike. It was a bicycle. It was made up to look like a motorcycle. And he was so excited, he couldn't wait to ride it. So I took him out on the street and I held it and I ran behind him as he pedaled for about an hour. Then finally he was pedaling and I let him go. Made it about 20 yards and I followed him. Scott, you're riding. And when he turned around, of course, he crashed. And after that, he was up on that bike. And we would always go bike riding and BMX riding together. Harris. You say you helped him build forts. What would you do as far as playing in the backyard and so forth? Peterson. Well, we lived in a nice area. Had a lot of hills behind it, and boulders and bushes, and we made forts back there. And actually, Scott was the first member of my club. So I would always start a club, and I would include him in and then his friends. I would make Scott the lieutenant, and I would be the president. His friends would be sergeants or privates. And during the week, if I got into trouble for whatever reason, teasing or he told on me, I would demote him to private and threaten to kick him out of the club or tear up his ID card. Harris. You actually made ID cards for him? Peterson. Yeah, with a typewriter. Make ID cards and 10 full badges. Harris. Now, if I understand it right, John, you heard, I'm sure, ad nauseum, a lot of talk about golf. Peterson. Definitely. Harris. You're the one member of the family that they have not hooked into it. Peterson. Not really hooked into it, no. I'll hit balls at the driving range, but golf is never my forte. Played a lot of football. I like to surf. Live in San Diego, so surfing is always good. Harris. You are obviously aware that Scott enjoyed playing golf. Peterson. Definitely. Harris. And I believe there was someone mentioned earlier, maybe you can kind of expound on it, that he actually had a business in the garage. Peterson. Yeah, I remember him tinkering around with golf clubs all the time. I think he was putting some together or making them shafts and the heads and putting the handles on. Little mail order deal. He was always up to something. Harris. Also, you recall the time where he was working at the golf course as well? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Picking up balls and retrieving some? Peterson. He had a job at an early age. He was hanging out at the golf course, and he started working there. They had him driving up the little car that picks up the golf balls on the driving range and working at the clubhouse. Harris. I assume as a big brother, having a big brother of my own, you weren't above teasing him some? Peterson. Definitely. My best teasing on Scott. I used to plan on it. One time I made these huge paw marks in the backyard with a shovel. And then I broke the trees. And I took Scott back there like we just discovered these paw prints. I told him there's a giant squirrel living back there and I just saw a piece of it. And he spent a couple of days in the summer hunting for that giant squirrel. Harris. He didn't want to go in the backyard after that. Peterson. What's that? Harris. Did he? He didn't want to go in the backyard after that. Peterson. Not without a stick or something. Harris. You also had mentioned that even at an early age, Scott seemed sort of mature. Peterson. Yeah. I mean, you say he was like a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old's body, he liked to emulate my father. He'd wear the same khaki pants and golf shirt. Usually they were almost dressed the same color and everything. A little miniature dad. He was also mature and knew what he was going to do. Harris, you have mentioned the story about when he lost his temper and was charging. You said later on you couldn't remember ever losing his temper. You told me sort of the way you handle things about you in piggy banks. What kind of example of that? Peterson. One day he came home early and I was stealing his money out of his piggy bank, and he caught me. And all he had to say was, John, what are you doing? And that was enough I think that is the last time I ever did that. Harris. As you got older, I assume you moved out of the house, you said, 17, 18, something like that? Peterson. 17. Harris. Scott would have been about 13 or so? Peterson. About 12 or 13. Harris. You eventually, over the years, you've seen him grow into manhood. Peterson. Yes. Harris. Watched his life progress? Peterson. Yeah, definitely. Harris. You obviously saw him going to college and get married and so forth. Peterson. Yes. Harris. What memories, when you look back on your childhood, you look back on those times at home, what kind of memories do you have about Scott? What kind of things do you think about when you think about those times? Peterson. I have fond memories. Summertime spent together in the woods and hiking and exploring things and biking, going to the beach. He's my little brother. Harris. Is he a good little brother? Peterson. Definitely. Great little brother. Harris. Did he follow you around? Peterson. Yes, he followed me around. Harris. Did he want to do things you were doing? Peterson. Yeah, a lot of times, sure. Harris. I know that eventually you got married, correct? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. What's your wife's name? Peterson. My wife's name is Allison. Harris. And when you got married, was Scott part of the wedding? Peterson. Scott was the best man at my wedding. He gave a great stern speech. Always a great speech giver. Always a gracious host. Scott found out that there was a gap between my wedding and my honeymoon. And we were just going to go to Vegas, but we weren't going until the next day. So he asked where we were going. I said, we're going home. Before I knew it, he called himself, got us a room at the Hyatt Islanda Hotel in San Diego before we took off. We invited him over for dinner and we had drinks and celebrated it. Harris. He also was there for the birth of your daughter. Is that right? Peterson. Definitely. My daughter was born and he drove down from Morro Bay and he brought by Winnie the Pooh, which had some significance for our family. We had a picture of Scott when he was a baby on the sofa and he was sitting next to Winnie the Pooh. They were almost exactly the same size. And so kind of his gift to me to bring me that Winnie the Pooh. He also brought a camera to take a picture and a nice Cuban cigar also. Harris. Was it sort of like Scott to make sure that the gifts he gave were very personalized? Peterson. Definitely. I think he put a lot of thought into everything he did. And a lot of thought to everyone he knew. Harris. Like, to mark these pictures, Judge, I believe there's 9 of them. Judge. How many you got? Harris. Yes, 9. Judge. The fitness 9K, 9 pictures, 9K, 9 pictures. Harris. You have 2 daughters, is that correct? Peterson. Yes, 2 daughters. Harris. What are their ages? Peterson. I have an 18-month-old and an 8-year-old. Harris. What's the 8-year-old's name? Peterson. The 8-year-old is Christine. Harris. In the 18 months? Peterson. Katie. Harris. You also remember growing up, I think you told me about Scott's love of fishing? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. He would go fishing frequently as a child. Peterson. We went. In Pondway, we went fishing in Lake Poway Lake. Harris. You went with him a lot? Peterson. I went a lot, yeah. Harris. Would he often go fishing with his mom as well? Peterson. I'm sorry? Harris. Would he also go fishing with your mother as well? Peterson. Yeah. She was the first one to take us fishing, I think. We would always con her into taking us for a couple of hours. Harris. There's been some discussion about Scott and his jobs and his work ethic. And what do you think that work ethic came from? Peterson. I know it came from my dad. Harris. Why do you say you know it came from your dad? Peterson. I think my dad told us in an early age that anything that's given to you is not as valuable as something you earn. He taught us to work hard for it, and we did. And Scott always had 2 or 3 jobs as a teenager, and he always worked hard for everything he got. Harris. Well, that's something that's always kind of resonated through your family. Peterson. Definitely. Harris. Just want to show you a series of pictures. It's just kind of give a short description of what's going on here. This is an earlier picture, you guys. Peterson. Yeah, definitely. Harris. How old do you go? How old were you there? Peterson. I would have to guess around 8. Harris. So that would be Scott around 2 or 3 or something like that. Peterson. 3, yeah. Harris. That's just a family photo. Peterson. Yeah. Harris. And D9K2, what's going on? It's a little dark. Peterson. You can't see it very well, but that is our big dog, Hagen. And he has his sunglasses on his eyes. Harris. What kind of dog is that? Peterson. Scottish Terrier. Harris. What was his name? Peterson. Hagen. Harris. He was named after Peterson. He was named after Walter Hagen, the golfer. Harris. That you got the sunglasses on him, is that correct? Peterson. Got sunglasses on him. Harris. Were you sort of the one of the family who used to known for pulling pranks? Peterson. Yes, definitely. Harris. What's going on here? Peterson. I'm giving him a horsey ride. Harris. How old is that? That also looks like you're about, 7 or 8 or 9? Peterson. Yeah, I'd say so. Harris. Would you and Scott often play together, those kind of things? Peterson. Oh, yeah, we're brothers. Harris. Looks like a Halloween picture. Peterson. Halloween picture. Harris. What's going on there? Peterson. Test out my scariest mask on Scotch. Usually I can sneak up on him and tap him on the shoulder. That one is not too scary there in later years. Harris. What's this a picture of? Peterson. Me in my state trooper outfit. I love that thing. Harris. And he looks, again, he's 2 or 3 or something like that. Peterson. Around there. Harris. A lot of pictures are one of the two years younger. Here's one when you were a little older. What's going on there? Peterson. That picture maybe taking a break at Disneyland, looks like. Harris. Would you do a lot of outings together, take him along a lot of times with you? Peterson. Oh, yeah. I mean, always go and bicycle around the neighborhood, hiking through the woods with our friends, camp and family vacations. Harris. Kind of a good kid brother. Didn't complain too much. Peterson. What's that? Harris. He was a good kid brother. He didn't complain too much. Peterson. Oh, yeah, he was a great kid brother. Hardly ever told on me. Harris. This is later on. What's going on here? Peterson. That's at my wedding. That's Harris. You mentioned Scott was the best man at the wedding. Peterson. He was the best man. Gave a good speech. Harris. Now this is you, right? Peterson. That's me. Harris. And what's going on here? Peterson. I think that's at the reception. Actually, maybe it was outside. Harris. Where did you get married? Peterson. Where? Harris. Yeah. Peterson. Ocean Beach, California. Close to my house. Harris. And lastly, B9, K9, you mentioned a reference to the present. Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Brought down from Morro Bay? Peterson. There's Winnie the Pooh he brought. There's my daughter Christine. Harris. Again, why is that significant? Peterson. Well, it was one of our favorite family photos of Scott, sitting next to that Winnie the Pooh on the couch there, about the same size. Harris. John, you have obviously heard us talking about the question as to why we're here, dealing with the decision this jury has to make. We have asked a lot of people about the effect it would have on them to see Scott put to death. How would it affect you? Peterson. I can't even imagine. I would be devastated. I can't even imagine. I would be wrecked. My little brother, I love him. I love him. Harris. How about the effect it would have on your parents? Peterson. I don't even want to go there. Harris. Fair enough. Thank you, John. All right, y'all. I know that episode was interrupted in the middle because of the rain the other day. And there's another part of it. And yeah, you know what? Killers have brothers too. And parents and sisters and shit like that and nieces and all that. I mean, what is the point of that whole testimony I just read you? You let him into a club when you were kids, and one time when he got his ass whipped, he came back and tried to fight dad. Best man at your wedding, gives good speeches, never saw him get angry, likes to golf. We went fishing as kids. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? But I don't know how the jury just didn't get up and leave. I mean, at this point, I'm going to want to kill Scott Peterson. Guaranteed. I mean, this makes no sense. Scorched. Stupid as fuck. I mean, it's amazing to me that, I don't know. I'm going to say this brought up on appeal. I guess it was, but it's just stupid. If you can tell me, I want you to write me and tell me what is the purpose of all this. What is the purpose of all this? And the rest of the shit I'm about to read you. Anyway, wrapping it up for today, y'all. I mean, it's important. Evidently, you're into it, and I get it. And I'm gonna read every piece of it. And thank you for liking and supporting us and Patreon and Convicts and Hashtag Justice for Haley. And don't forget about Miss Barbara Blunt. LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. You know, it's my jam. You do not have to be a lifer from Louisiana to become an organ donor. You can be a lifer from Toronto. Go to lopa.org. Take 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire thing, sign up, become an organ donor, give the gift of life and sight and all other great things they do. Nonprofit, and I love them. And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. Until next time or ever, don't let me catch you. Don't murder. Bye. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, you're running over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.